go to meet for a drink, and then the next thing anyone knows, he's dead and she's covered in blood. The only plausible shooter is this woman. What the hell happened?
To catch that conversation, find and follow Crime Story wherever you get your podcasts.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show. Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC.
This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, we're at 20 degrees with partly cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. Winnipeg police are about to give us an update about yesterday's devastating house explosion in Transcona. CBC reporter Gavin Axelrod is on Camrose Bay, the street rocked by that blast. Gavin joins us live. Gavin?
All that's left of the house that exploded yesterday is its foundation and front steps. To the left of it, the home's windows are blown out, the wall is pushed in, and the garage is charred. We spoke to the Laurivier family. They live right next door and weren't home at the time. They say a neighbor ran into the house to save their 90-pound dog, and they say it looks like the house has been riddled with bullet holes from the damage. Now, we're expecting to hear more from police here shortly, and residents here are eagerly waiting to find out even the smallest bit more about what happened here. Reporting live, Gavin Axelrod, CBC News.
Thank you, Gavin. Gavin Axelrod reporting from Camrose Bay in Transcona, and you can hear that police news conference live coming right up on CBC's Radio Noon, and we'll also be carrying it on CBC Manitoba's YouTube channel. We saw a rally in front of Winnipeg City Hall this morning. That's the sound of community groups and their supporters cheering as the city announces a delay on a decision to approve a cut to the city's grant program. The CBC's Cameron McLean has more from City Hall.
Around 200 people filled the courtyard in front of City Hall this morning. Representatives of organizations like Art City, BGC Winnipeg, and Spence Neighborhood Association say they rely on grants from the city for their operations. Those grants could be at risk if city councillors adopt recommended changes to the grant program. City staff proposed cutting the program by $2 million, more than half of the available funding. Money would have to be tied to specific projects and could not be used for core operations. But Art City Executive Director Eddie Ayub told the crowd the mayor had agreed to table the report. It will be taken back to the Executive Policy Committee for reconsideration next month. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Trudeau government is expanding the federal dental program. Minister of Health, Mark Holland, says it will include people who receive a disability tax credit and children under the age of 18.
This means that a family who's having to make that choice about whether or not they pay groceries or they get the oral health care that's preventative for their family, they don't have to make that choice anymore. It means for a person with disabilities where they often have such complex issues that the costs involved in getting oral health care are totally impossible to them. That's gone.
In total, Holland says it could add close to 1.5 million people to the eligibility list. Applicants must be uninsured with an annual household income of under $90,000. And this comes as Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says her government is looking to opt out of the federal program. A sentencing hearing is happening today for a former Manitoba doctor who sexually assaulted 7 patients. It happened while they were seeking medical care. The CBC's Josh Crabb has your details.
64-year-old Arcel Bissonnette worked as a doctor in the town of St. Anne. He was convicted of sexually assaulting 5 women patients during medical appointments between 2001 and 2017, and also pleaded guilty to sexually assaulting 2 others. The Crown is seeking 18 years behind bars, arguing Bissonnette was in a position of trust and authority to each of the victims and that they came to him for medical care, but he breached their trust by touching them in sexual ways. The Crown argues there was a pattern of behavior showing there's a risk of Bissonnette reoffending. Some of the women shared victim impact statements saying they felt vulnerable and no longer feel comfortable seeking medical care. The defense is seeking a 9-year sentence, citing Bissonnette's age, guilty pleas, and his previously clean criminal record. They argue he's a low risk to reoffend because he lost his medical license. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Researchers at the University of Maryland say the wildfires in Canada last year pumped more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere than India did by burning fossil fuels, all within 1 year. It's estimated the fires produced more than 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide and burned 77,000 kilometers of forest. That's an area larger than the state of West Virginia. 5 Manitobans have been named to the Order of Canada, including Tina Jones. She is a founder of Jones & Company Wine Merchants and also chairs the Health Sciences Centre Foundation. She says her motivation comes from seeing how the foundation helps move healthcare forward in our province.
We see what philanthropy does to innovation, and when a doctor is able to receive a new robot or any kind of new equipment that we have donated or we've purchased for the doctors through the donations that we receive, it's just, it's enlightening.
Jones got the call from the Governor General's office in April and could only tell her friends and family about the award at first. She says she wants to share it with all the members of the Health Sciences Centre Foundation. And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/Manitoba. In Winnipeg, we're seeing increasing clouds this afternoon and a high of 23 degrees. Brandon and Risco, a thunderstorm and rainy, a high of 21. Dauphin, isolated showers and a high of 22. Flin Flon, a mix of sun and cloud, a high of 23. Thompson, a chance of showers, a high of 20. And in Churchill, a high of 6 with a chance of showers. Right now, you are listening to CBC Radio 1.
Good afternoon, my friends. Thanks for joining us today for Radio Noon. I'm Janet Stewart. As you just heard in the news, the Winnipeg Police Service is investigating why a house exploded yesterday in Winnipeg's Transcona neighborhood. The service is planning to give us an update at 12:15. We're going to take you there live. If you're sick of mowing and watering, if you have questions about incorporating native plants or stuff you can eat into your yard or your planter design, stay tuned. In our second half hour, landscape designer Nick Friesen-Hughes joins us to share his wisdom. But Radio Noon begins today with cash to help create local businesses. The federal government's putting millions into supporting entrepreneurs in 6 Manitoba communities. The federal government is investing in Newcomer entrepreneurs in 6 Manitoba communities as part of a $3.9 million funding announcement. Brandon-based Westman Immigrant Services will receive almost $1.2 million of that to operate its entrepreneur hub. Enver Naidoo is executive director of Westman Immigrant Services. We reached him by Zoom this morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Janet.
What kind of difference will this money make to Westman Immigrant Services?
This funding is certainly going to support the community and the region with the ability to activate new entrepreneurs, as well as support immigrant and newcomers who have started businesses in the region, strengthen their business, and then also connect with local and established businesses to build new partnerships.
So you're taking all the money and you're using it to support your entrepreneur hub. Tell me about that.
So the Entrepreneur Hub, it's a physical space with dedicated staff. And the intention there is to be able to create a community space where entrepreneurs, either those in the startup phase, those thinking about starting up, or those who already started up, can come and receive free coaching, training, access to mentors. And then also, in some cases, immigrants may not know about the amazing resources that exist in the community. So it's also an opportunity for us to refer them to other supports based on what their business needs are.
How often do people arrive in Westman from other countries and want to start businesses?
So entrepreneurs, they come from all walks of life, but immigrants and newcomers have certainly been identified as a potential stakeholder for entrepreneurship for a variety of reasons, both in the region and nationally. We've seen a significant influx in immigration levels, the last few years, and certainly as we look at immigration levels in the future. And so this is a unique opportunity for us to support these immigrants as they arrive in the community, who have these aspirations and potential to start new businesses. The advantages, obviously are significant from an economic perspective, but also, this is going to support retention in the province as well and in our regions. And so, it's a win-win for everyone.
Retention, let's talk about the importance of that. What difference does that make economically to Westman?
So, I think the province of Manitoba has seen recently, certainly one of the highest levels of out-migration. I think that the opportunity for entrepreneurs to start a business certainly means they invested in the community. They're more likely to stay. There's opportunities for job creation. I think that could certainly play a role in the growth of rural Manitoba and communities in the region as well.
When did you begin the hub? When did you create it?
So the hub itself, was in 2 phases, and so we had a dedicated team come on board last year, and our second phase has just come on board recently, which allows us to scale up many of these programs and activities that we're quite excited about. And so we've already been building relationships and building the supports, but as we now have the second phase coming online, it allows us to scale that up.
And what is the second phase?
So the second phase, it's a dedicated space at 902 Rosser Avenue, and this is in downtown Brandon, which is quite exciting. I think Brandon being the second largest city in the province, having this physical presence, it's an opportunity to increase traffic flow in downtown. And certainly, if there's the potential that, the downtown location might be a good fit for new entrepreneurs, it's an opportunity for them to think about that as a venue, and that will support revitalization. The location, we open, weekly as Monday to Friday, but we also recognize that, some individuals, they may not go straight into full-time entrepreneurship. They might have a business and start with a side hustle. So we're also offering programs in the evenings as well as on Saturdays to be able to be more accessible.
Are you accessible to Brandonites who are not newcomers?
I often say that immigrants and newcomers don't live in a vacuum, and certainly businesses don't operate in a vacuum either. So one of the opportunities with this space, which we're very excited about, is the ability to create collaborations between immigrants, newcomers, as well as local and established businesses and other stakeholders. We really see the space as an opportunity to create an ecosystem so that it can support that bridge building and that relationships and those networks that's going to benefit not only immigrants and newcomers, but all community businesses and stakeholders.
And get more businesses growing and, as you said, helping each other. I want to ask about a human story. Enver, can you think of an entrepreneur you've met along the way, someone who's been helped or could have been helped by the services you're now able to offer?
I think one of the things that we've seen, Janet, is that, there's been certainly an enthusiasm and excitement from immigrants to start businesses. They may have sold the house, they've sold the car, and they arrive in the community with capital. And if they are unaware of the local regulations or even the local market, they may be very successful starting that business, but they may not necessarily have the supports to grow that business. And without a safety net, right, it can be fairly daunting for those individuals and their families. And so the ability to support that journey, becomes very important because, it's not only about supporting businesses growing, but it's also about supporting individuals and families who move to the community and are excited about, calling this community home. On the flip side, where we've also seen some success, certainly with businesses that have been started by immigrants and newcomers, is that, there's job creation that is new job creation that has come about, which is there's also new industries as well. In some cases, these individuals come with a diverse professional background, unique industry experience, and also broad international exposure. And so those are opportunities to bring that into the community and shift the way the economy is looking with potentially new technology or opportunities for export or opportunities for import. So it's still early days, right? But I think we're very excited about the direction this is going.
Enver Naidoo, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Janet. Appreciate your time as well. Have a nice day.
You too. Enver Naidoo is Chief Executive Officer of Westman Immigrant Services. We're going to take you now live to Transcona, a neighborhood in Winnipeg where a house exploded yesterday. Constable Jason Mikulishin is standing by to update the media on what the Winnipeg Police Service investigation has uncovered. They're just getting set up now. Let's listen in.
Do you need me to stand a little closer to this one, or you're good? Okay. Yeah, no, I said 12:15. If we want to wait till 12:15, if everybody's ready, we'll start a tad early. Hey, Chris.
I'm worried that if we go to a promo, we're going to miss his words, so let's just listen in. This is Constable Jason Mikulishin standing by in Transcona where a house exploded yesterday. That house is at the corner of Camrose Bay and Coldstream Avenue. Constable Jason Mikulishin. If you'd like to watch this, you'll also find it on YouTube. Just search CBC Manitoba and go to our page.
On June 26th at approximately 11:20 a.m., emergency personnel from the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service and the Winnipeg Police Service responded to a catastrophic fire event involving a residence in the 100 block of Camrose Bay. General Patrol members from our East District Station responded immediately and managed the scene, ensuring public safety and allowing WFPS crews to fight the fire. Upon arrival, it was determined that a residence had exploded, leaving only parts of the foundation intact. Debris has been located throughout the neighborhood, and nearby homes have sustained various property damage. Investigators have identified and safely located the occupants of the home. At this time, no serious injuries have been reported. The cause of the explosion remains under investigation by the WPS Major Crimes Unit in collaboration with the WFPS Fire Investigations Branch, the Bomb Unit, and the Forensic Identification Section. We would ask anyone with information or video surveillance that may assist investigators to call 204-986-6219. That's our Major Crimes Unit. Crime Stoppers at 204-TIPS-8477 or online at winnipegcrimestoppers.org. So again, obviously, we're 24 hours into this investigation, very, very early stages. As you can see behind me, a catastrophic explosion to a residence occurred yesterday around this time, almost exactly around this time. Our efforts are continuing. We're here to support the community that are struggling. They're struggling with what's happened on their beautiful neighborhood here in Transcona, and we're going to do everything we can to help and support them. As far as the investigation goes, limited information to share right now. I guess the two big things in the release right now are the fact that the occupants of the home, my understanding, a male and a female who would normally be in the residence, have been located, they've been identified, and we are speaking to them. And as far as the investigation continuing, like I said, by members of our Major Crimes Unit and in collaboration with the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service, our Forensic Unit, and our Bomb Unit. Obviously, all of these units bring on a lot of expertise with respect to events like this. So I'll take some questions. I have another release that's tied to this as well, but I'll kind of keep them separate.
Constable, is there anything criminal suspected?
At this time, there is nothing that I can provide you that can confirm or deny that. Right now, we're in the early stages of the investigation. We're not going to leave any informational bit of knowledge that we can bring to the table. We're not going to leave any stone unturned at this point. If the investigation is going to guide us in the direction that it needs to, right now we've had a catastrophic event in a residential neighborhood, and we're doing everything in our power to determine what was the cause. Houses don't just explode. There is a reason for it. And what that reason is yet to be determined.
And you said the occupants are normally home at that time. So is this just luck?
Well, I can't quite say. I mean, I say a male and female who normally reside in the home. So we have, I think there's I believe it's an adult male, adult female that, like all of us, come and go from our residence. They weren't home at the time. We did locate them safe, uninjured, and not believed to be in the residence, obviously, at the time. So conversations with those individuals are ongoing.
Do you know where they were at the time?
I believe a father-daughter.
And so the father, I guess, is the homeowner?
My understanding, yes.
And so what have you heard from him in all this? Like,
Yeah.
where's he at?
Too early for me to say at this point. All I'm going to acknowledge is that conversations with that individual are ongoing. We're going to try and gather as much information as we can with respect to, like any investigation, if I can just generalize for a minute, if an event occurs, we're going to speak to anyone in this community, and we've spoken to a lot of people. What did they see? What did they hear before they left? Any information that might help us move this investigation forward with respect to what took place.
Do you know what they were asking, like, what was his reaction? What was the man's reaction, I guess, when you had told him, like, some neighbors said he had shown up here later in the evening and found out that his house had exploded? I guess, what was his reaction?
I don't think I have an exact quote to provide you, but I think it's pretty safe to say what would any of our reaction be to something like this, and I think it would be very upsetting. Chris?
Oh, I was just going to ask, when the explosion happened, the two occupants, do you know where they were at the time?
I don't know, but again, they were identified and located sometime after the event took place. They've spoken to investigators, and I can assure you they'll be continuing to speak with investigators as this investigation unfolds.
Is there any one cause that is sort of, the suspected cause at the moment? Is there one thing that sort of stands out from other potential causes?
No, I mean, obviously, we've had an explosion. So, I mean, there's a number of things that we're going to be looking at. I'm not a fire investigator. I'm a police officer, and I'll generalize through any investigation. We're going to look at any and all potential causes for this fire. Are we looking at gas or electrical? Are we looking at any other factors potentially? Those are all going to form a part of our investigation. We're not going to jump to conclusions. We're not going to speculate. What took place. That's not how we investigate. We're going to be very thorough and methodical. And I can tell you, and I don't think anyone here will dispute me on it, this is an incredibly complex investigation. When we have an explosion of this nature, and we have a debris field, and I believe Chief Wilkinson yesterday just spoke on this so well yesterday. The debris field was potentially blocks away. So again, it's catastrophic in nature. And for us to piece this together so quickly, it's not going to happen. We're going to be in the area for days, potentially weeks. It could be even longer with respect to the answers that we all want right now. But it's just not going to happen.
As the homeowner?
Yeah.
Constable, when did you actually were able to find the occupants of the home? Can you confirm if it was yesterday or today?
To my knowledge, it was yesterday, and whether it was a short time after or whether it was hours after, I would have to find that out exactly. I don't want to be, I don't want to confirm that, but sometime after the explosion, and I would have to look into that. And that's probably the best, I can provide at this point.
Is the homeowner providing investigators with information that, might lead to what the cause is? Like, has the homeowner been able to do that, or is the homeowner just as in shock?
Well, I think there is a level of shock. I can't speak on the conversation directly. It would be inappropriate for me to get into those details, but I'm hopeful and we're optimistic that the homeowner will provide us with all the information that they can to move our investigation forward. We want facts, we want truth, and we're hopeful that anyone that witnessed it, again, the owners, any information that they can provide us to move this investigation forward is greatly appreciated, and we're very optimistic that will happen. Yeah, go ahead.
Are there any possible causes that have been ruled out?
Nothing at this point. I think we have to be, in investigations like this, we have to be very open-minded. We have a lot of area experts on the scene here. Like I mentioned, first and foremost, Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service, Fire Investigations Branch, those individuals, this is what they do. Incredibly knowledgeable. They're going to examine the scene, and they're going to make certain assessments and determinations based on what we're dealing with, the aftermath. We have members of our bomb unit who are very well versed in explosive devices, obviously. We have members of our major crimes unit who actively are involved in major investigations on a daily basis. So we have some awesome people that are going to put the pieces of this puzzle together. And again, I was speaking to area residents just a little while ago, and I think if there's any message that we really want to get across today is to provide them with that reassurance. If this happened in my community, I would want that reassurance. So they're kind of our priority right now, as you can well imagine, and they need answers, and we're going to do our very best to help them get those answers and the resources that they need right now. I know insurance companies will step up, but there could be some other areas that they need assistance in, and if it's just a simple question, I'm all ears.
The bomb squad, or bomb unit
Yep.
involvement,
Yep.
how would you describe that? Is that sort of standard for an incident like this, or precautionary?
I would say more of a standard. I mean, you got to understand the training, the type of training that the bomb unit undergoes. They're very well versed in explosions and things that even after the fact, right? They're gonna receive training, in that area that most of us are not going to have, and so to have that area expertise, to work collaboratively with other investigators, I think is truly a bonus with respect to this investigation.
Aside from the police service and the fire paramedic service, are there any other agencies?
Oh yeah.
Involved?
Well, I mean, obviously Manitoba Hydro is going to be a partner in this. We're going to be collaborating with them. They're going to have, individuals within Manitoba Hydro that are going to have levels of expertise with respect to the work that they do. So we'll be collaborating with them, most definitely, if we haven't already, which I think we have. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts here. Again, we just want all members of the public, specifically this community, to know that we're committed to finding out what's taken place here, provide them with that reassurance, and provide the public as a whole, answers as to what was the cause. But we're not going to jump to conclusions. We're not going to speculate at this point. We're going to just be very open-minded and respectful to the entire scene and everyone directly involved, and take it from there.
Maybe too early
Yeah.
to answer this question, but how long do you expect an investigation like this to take?
Well, it'll be more than days. It's going to be weeks, and it's potentially months. So weeks and months. I'm going to say months. I'm going to say months. Absolutely. Yeah.
And
it's going to take some time.
The scene, do you know how long this will be held?
Yeah. Awesome question. Okay, so what's going to happen today? I know we want to help and support some of the residents in here. I know there's an area resident that wants to get a vehicle out that is functional. We have MPI that wants to get another vehicle out that's clearly not functional. We have a demolition crew, and I use that word just because that's kind of how we titled them, but they're going to be here when the scene is ultimately released, because what the area residents are going to see probably throughout the day are a number of investigators on scene. They're going to see members of our major crimes unit, they're going to see members of our bomb unit, and our forensic identification section. They're all working collaboratively, when that scene is released, then the demo crew will come in and start the cleanup. Let's just call it a bit of a cleanup. So what's going to happen is this scene is going to get pushed back for obvious reasons, because there could be some other equipment coming in here, clearly a tow truck or two. Yeah, I would encourage you, any shots that you're going to get them now, because this perimeter will probably get expanded, certainly on this block, in the next little while. But that'll be up to the investigators to make that call.
You were saying to the residents a little while ago that the debris, some of it could have ended up blocks away, possibly. if somebody is living blocks away and they do find something in their yard or,
Yeah.
or wherever, any advice to them? What they
Really,
should do?
really good question. Great question, Chris, and I appreciate you asking that. Yeah, not something I had in my notes, but yeah, if anybody spots anything in their yard that obviously wasn't there previously, and if it does appear to be some debris associated to yesterday's event, just put it aside. You don't need to, if it's in your way, push it aside. Don't you don't have to touch it. Contact our major crimes unit, 204-986-6219, and we'll make arrangements for that item to be picked up, or at least officers attend and determine whether or not it's something we need to seize as part of our investigation. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a resident.
Okay.
2 houses over.
Yeah.
Just safety of the residents.
Mhm.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
I know you said the bomb unit was in here.
Yeah.
Or has been. Like, is there any concern of any other activity along these lines? They haven't.
No.
There's safety.
Yeah. We have no information right now that there's a threat to the community or safety is being compromised moving forward. This area is safe. We've determined that. If there was ever a moment where we felt there was a continued threat, someone would be knocking on your door and letting you know immediately. Right now, we're at the investigation stage. Right now, you're looking at the aftermath. It's ugly. There's a lot of emotion associated to that. So whatever we can do to answer some of those questions for you, just please let us know, and we'll get those answers for you. So, oh no, hey, if anybody deserves to ask a question, it's you. Yeah, no, absolutely. Ask any questions. I'll do my best to answer them for you. Absolutely. Okay, you bet.
I had just one last one for
The perimeter is going to be pushed back for basically coming up and cleaning up.
Yeah.
Would potentially more residents need to be vacated out of it?
Not necessarily. When I say just the perimeter, just to allow crews to either move debris, it'll be less of a crime scene as opposed to more of a hazard. Maybe the best way, where we don't want anyone to get hurt because of the equipment. So the scene hasn't been released yet, and that'll be up to investigators. Once the scene is released, then you're going to start seeing some of that other equipment. Then it becomes a little bit hazardous, and yeah, we want to be very careful that no one gets hurt.
do you know how many neighboring homes are uninhabited now because of this, or how many people have been displaced?
That's a great question. I don't think I have that number. I think I would be guessing, and I don't want to, because you got to understand the nature of this explosion may have impacted a house across the street, but maybe a house right nearby wasn't impacted. So it could be there could be a house a block over that some damage may have happened. A fire, I know, there was someone's deck on fire. There was a garage issues. I'm looking even into the distance, different roofs that have damage, and obviously there's some concern there. So hard for me to say, but we talk about dozens of homes potentially, but I'm speculating, and I shouldn't be doing that. So, but
has something like this ever happened in the city in a residential neighborhood? Or?
I think we have had incidents where this is not something that happens very often. For me to pick one right out of my brain here right now would be difficult to say. But have we had major events similar to this, or this is pretty catastrophic? This is one of the worst that I've seen for sure. Yeah.
Just to follow on that, when officers were on scene here and crews were here, what was their reaction to what they had seen at this house?
Well, I can only imagine. I was looking, through a similar lens as probably most Winnipeggers yesterday. Videos that were coming in, and my jaw was definitely open. And I know when we had members of our East District Station attend the scene pretty quickly, first and foremost to ensure the safety of the area residents, secure the area, and then allow Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service to get in here and manage the fire. So, despite the work that they need to do, I'm sure they were pretty shocked to what they saw, because I did see some information coming in the call history, and it was significant, but we have work to do, right? We can be shocked and in awe as all we want. We have to look after the residents in this community that are directly impacted. So there's no time for pausing. We gotta get in and get to work and do what we gotta do. So,
How are
yeah.
the folks in the adjacent houses here? Like, has WPS made contact with those?
Well, I spoke to the resident right next door and had some conversations with him, and he's obviously very concerned about his home, as he should be. So we want to provide him with some information, and I think he's just here to my left. He deserves all the answers in the world, and we're going to do our best to help him out with respect to some of the cleanup that's going to be happening, I would assume, later today. So yeah, so we all just have to be patient. We have to rely on each other, and just trust the work of the Winnipeg Police Service and the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service. There's some awesome gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen that are part of our organization. They're incredibly passionate about what they do. They're very good at what they do. We're just going to need the time to sort through this unfortunate mess.
Sorry if I missed it.
Yeah.
If you mentioned it, but you said the people who live in that home, a man and a daughter. Is the daughter adult daughter, child?
I believe it an adult, yeah. But I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, the folk, I'm just pleased that they're okay. We've been able to make contact with them, and really, first and foremost, we're really happy they weren't in the home, and we're really happy that we're not reporting any fatalities or serious injuries today. That is definitely the silver lining, without a doubt. Okay, thank you guys, appreciate it. So yeah, please be respectful of the perimeter. Please be respectful of the area residents, like you always are, I'm sure. And we'll kind of get through the day here. The perimeter will change, and it'll be pretty fluid throughout the day. Thank you.
Of the Winnipeg Police Service wrapping up an update he was giving local media on a house that exploded in the Winnipeg neighborhood of Transcona yesterday. Our Matt Humphreys is covering news for us today. He's been listening in. What stuck with you, Matt?
Well, as police said, no one was injured. They still say no one was injured in yesterday's house explosion in Transcona. Officers found the two residents of the home that blew up on Camrose Bay. A man and a woman are safe, we're told. The major crimes unit, including the forensics and bomb units, are investigating the explosion. That could go on for weeks. The Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service is also involved. And police at this point cannot tell us whether this was a crime. And they're still asking anyone with any video surveillance, any information, any other evidence to come forward. Anything you might find that you think might be pertinent. I'll have another look at all the news at 1:30.
Thank you very much, Matt
soon.
Humphrey. Our weather specialist, Riley Lachuk, also joins us now. We've got a long weekend ahead,
yes, we do.
Riley. This, of course, though, is Thursday. How is this day shaping up?
So today, we're starting to see some cloud building in as expected across parts of southern Manitoba, particularly into the Westman region. Brandon, through the Dauphin Riding Mountain region, into the cloud cover already, starting to see sort of that beginning band of cloud start to move into the Winnipeg region already, and that's what we can expect as we get through the afternoon, with some rain starting to move in as well as we get into the afternoon hours here. So by the time we get to about supper time, we start to see sort of the first bands of rain begin to move into southwestern Manitoba, and I'm talking a pretty good soaking rain coming for a lot of us across southern Manitoba. The more south you are in the province, expect more in the way of the potential for some heavy rain. By about midnight or so, we start to see that rain moving into the Red River Valley, more of a steady rain back to the west through the overnight hours into the early morning, about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. Some heavier pockets of rain move into the Red River Valley, and we start the day tomorrow by about sort of the dawn-ish time, first thing in the morning, 7, 8 o'clock, into still some pretty heavy rain in the Winnipeg region. Tapering off to periods of light rain throughout the day for the Red River Valley, but some heavier rain still back to the west through the later part of the day. We see that clearing out as we get into Saturday, which becomes a mainly sunny afternoon, a sunny day ahead for us on Sunday as well. Talking rainfall accumulations very quickly. Looking by the time we get to the morning hours tomorrow, 10 to 15 millimeters in Winnipeg. Could see some higher amounts, 20 to 30, say, into the Dauphin, Roblin, Russell region throughout the rest of Friday into Saturday. I'm saying about 15 to 25 millimeters of rain through the Red River Valley. Some higher pockets to the west and into the Riding Mountain region as well. Forecast today, very quickly, looking at a high of 23 in Winnipeg, 21 in Brandon this afternoon, 19 in Thompson. As mentioned, sunshine returns for Saturday, 20 degrees, 23 for Sunday. Canada Day on Monday. Janet, we're looking at mainly sunny day, maybe a risk of a thunderstorm once again in the afternoon.
Thanks very much, Riley.
No problem.
Riley Lachuk will keep his eye on this, on the developing systems that affect our weather. He'll report back during Up to Speed Reed this afternoon between 3 and 6 p.m. here on CBC Radio 1. And then he'll be on television and on to CBC Manitoba's YouTube page tonight between 6 or 7. The convenient thing about the YouTube page is you can watch it any old time. All right, gardeners, we want to know, are you sick of mowing? Have you been thinking about perhaps changing your landscape to incorporate more native plants, things that need perhaps less mowing and less watering? Well, if you have, today's your lucky day because we have a landscape designer joining us to talk about these things and to share some advice. His name is Nick Friesen-Hughes. He is landscape designer with Dogwood Landscape Design. Nick, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks, Janet. Thanks for having me here.
It's wonderful to have you here. The number to call if you want to chat with Nick, if you want to ask any questions or share what you think looks beautiful in a landscape, give us a call, 204-780-0893. Again, 204-780-0893. Nick, are you seeing a change in trends when it comes to landscape design in Manitoba?
It's a good question. I think so. It's tricky because, for me, a lot of this is anecdotal. A lot of clients come to me, they're already thinking about grasses and they're thinking about drought, pollinators, thinking about how they can garden differently and thinking about the environment. So
that's because you have a particular interest in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are you passionate about those things?
Oh, great question. I think, I started my training in English garden, pretty traditional, and a lot of traditional horticulture is quite resource intensive. So you have bare soil, you're watering, fertilizing, you're growing really showy blooms, big roses, plants of that nature, and it's a lot of maintenance. And so the more I learned about gardening and different plants, I started to be more captivated also by natural landscapes. Things you would see growing on the edge of the forest or near a prairie. So thinking about how gardens can be less and less maintenance, and also, I would say, being exposed to different ideas of beauty, and those gradually came together, and I started to explore those styles of gardening.
I'm seeing more and more naturalized lawns and spaces. What do you think, Manitoba? What do you think about lawns? Are they a thing of beauty, or do you think they could be land used differently? Give us a call, 204-780-0893. I noticed kind of a generational divide in our newsroom about this. We bring up a lawn, and I see lots of people, my colleagues who are in their 20s, saying wasted space. It's, but that's something that for generations people have really prided themselves in, that expanse of grasses. But the grasses people plant in their lawn they're not native Manitoba grasses, are they?
No, so that's Kentucky bluegrass in most lawns here. And to be fair, I think lawns can be incredibly useful for sports fields and if you have children that want to play. But we have them in so many spaces. And even in a small front yard, you can have so much color and provide a lot of ecological value as well. And especially with some of the droughts we've had the past few years, when people see their Kentucky bluegrass lawn turn brown, it will require supplemental water to still look green as they want it to. And a lot of these other alternatives, such as native grasses, have deep roots. They can handle that drought. They still look good.
So let's talk about that. How easy is it to change over, say, a lawn or even a smaller space?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you begin if you're thinking about making a change to a native plant?
Mm-hmm. I think, compared to lots of landscape installations people do, sidewalks, hardscape, anything like that, converting a typical lawn is inexpensive. You typically only need to remove the first 1.5 inches of soil and root system from a Kentucky bluegrass. It has very shallow roots. From there, site prep can be really different. It depends how many weeds you have. A lot of places in the city, they have a lot of quack grass. So if you remove that first 1.5 inches, you're still going to have quack grass roots below that.
What does quack grass look like? Like a duck?
I wish, it would be much easier to identify.
I guess I'm going to have to say go to Google and find the image, or is it something you can describe on the radio?
Coarse grass blade, I think it looks like it has a sort of wheat seed head. if you see a tall grass, 2-3 feet growing on a boulevard, it's probably quackgrass.
And is that something we want to get rid of?
It's so competitive. It's invasive.
It's not a native plant.
Yeah, and it also, it has spreading rhizomes, so it will root everywhere and pop up feet away from one single plant. But it will also actively release chemicals that inhibit other plants from growing. So it is a super competitor.
Okay, so unless you want a field of quackgrass, that's something you want to get rid of. What questions do you have for Nick? I have a million of them. What are your questions, Manitoba? You have a landscape designer right here at your beck and call. And the number to call for that is 204-780-0893. Okay, so we're clearing space. You're a designer. What is it you look for in great design? Like, how do there's one thing to plant. Okay, I can think, well, dig up my lawn, start there. But how much planning should I be doing before I start the digging process?
It really depends on the site. It depends what kind of plants you have growing there. If you have a typical site, typical lawn, you could get ahead of it by prepping your site the year before. You could remove the grass. You could put cardboard down and put wood chip mulch over top of that, a few inches. That's a good technique to start to burn out some of the seeds and the weeds that are in that soil underneath.
Would you put that down to kill the grass or still dig out the grass?
I would still dig out the grass. You probably could get away with it, but don't risk it.
Okay. Cardboard. I talked to a master gardener once in Wolseley who'd converted his space, and come to think of it, that's what he did. Cardboard and mulch, and then started again because the cardboard will break down.
The trick is don't use anything too waxy. Try to get rid of the tape and the labels. I don't ever advocate for landscape fabric. If you're planting, in a matter of years, you're going to have quackgrass, creeping bellflower, seeding, growing through it anyway. Cardboard will break down in a matter of years and it'll only enrich the soil.
Okay.
But the trick is to do your site prep right.
Do your site prep right.
Yeah, really commit. Get those weeds out initially. The more effort you can put in when you're prepping the site and when you're establishing new seedlings, young plants, the less effort you have to do later.
How easy is it now to source good native plants?
It's great. I get mine from Prairie Originals up near Selkirk. Prairie Flora is another one. I think Laura Reeves from Prairie Shore Botanicals has started selling as well. All of them would say we need more native plant growers. And every year, more and more people are getting into it.
Darlene has a question for us. Darlene, thanks for calling Radio Noon.
Oh, hi. Our lawn has been completely taken over by Creeping Charlie, and we're not quite sure what to do about it. We'd love to plant some native... Are
you still there, Darlene? Have we lost you? Darlene, I think we may have lost you.
Oh.
Are you there, Darlene?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good. The last thing we heard is that your lawn's been taken over by Creeping Charlie, and you'd love to put in some native plants?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, what is Creeping Charlie, Nick? And how would you describe it again on the radio? What does it look like?
Creeping Charlie has a rounded, lobed leaf. It grows along the ground very low, only a few inches, and it grows sort of like a strawberry. You'll see it rooting around from just spreading horizontally. I don't consider it really threatening and very competitive. I think it's kind of cute, to be honest. You'll see it, especially in Wolseley and areas like that, when there's a lot of dappled shade. It can fill those holes between Kentucky bluegrass. I don't think you need to consider anything specially when you're establishing a lawn. I would still remove it like Kentucky bluegrass. If you're still having an issue, you can pick it out here and there later.
Darlene, were you thinking of removing your lawn or just...
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I should just leave it because it really has pretty much overtaken our lawn.
The Creeping Charlie.
Yeah.
Is there something you could add to that, Nick, that's because it's a native plant would be a little bit voracious and would perhaps fight back against the Creeping Charlie a bit?
You can always include part shade plants if that's the situation for your lawn.
Is it shady, Darlene?
Part part shade, part sun.
So what's a good
northern
native
exposure?
Right.
Yeah, I think the trick is I would just always advocate if you have a lot of Kentucky bluegrass and creeping Charlie and you want to establish other plants, if you're going to establish plants right in that lawn, they're always going to be competing, especially initially, against those other plants. So I would remove them if you can and then start fresh and really take care to let your new plants establish, because the tighter you can have those new plants together and the fuller and healthier they are, the more they'll discourage weeds. If you have creeping Charlie and Kentucky bluegrass in there right from the beginning, immediately they're competing for nutrients, light, water.
Yeah, well, we did have our lawn completely redone about 12 years ago, and this creeping Charlie has crept in from either side, from our neighbors.
Hence the name. It just creeps. Darlene, thanks so much for calling Radio Noon today.
No problem.
Now, Mark also has a question about a super invasive plant. What are you dealing with, Mark?
I got this tall plant that grows about 18 inches tall. It's got a long stem, and it's got these purple-blue bells. And I got it years ago when I brought in some soil. It's been about 15 years, and the root goes super deep, and it almost goes afterwards into a turnip.
Yeah, they
root.
can get huge.
And I cannot get rid of this out of my gardens and out of my flower beds. It just keeps coming back, and it's killing all my good perennials. So I don't know what to do.
Another creeper, creeping bellflower.
Creeping bellflower. Sounds so pretty.
And you know what? It is pretty, but it's tough because it has those big, juicy roots like you're talking about, and it'll spread from seed. It'll float over from your neighbor's yard as well. If I had an infested yard, do you have plants that you want to save?
Yes, I do.
I would dig them out. I mean, now it's tough. It's summer, but I think it would still be worth it if you can water them a lot. I'd dig them out. I'd put them somewhere safe, or I'd pot them up. I would fork your whole lawn and take out as many of those big roots as you can. And then I would solarize your yard, either with cardboard or tarp, and I would cook out as much of that as I could.
Solarize. Okay. That's what you're doing. You're creating heat.
Yeah, so if you use something like a black tarp, you hold it down with rock or brick. When seeds germinate underneath, they'll come up and they can't. And use a thick tarp, by the way. They'll come up and they can't get through. And the extra heat will actually kill some of the other seeds. So that's a great way if you're thinking in advance, months in advance, and you can heat your yard for a few months. Just be careful on the edges, because that bellflower will root into the sides of a sidewalk and sprout right up.
Well, that's exactly what has happened. So I dug out all kind of like the perennials that I had, and I pulled all the roots out. I put the perennials back, and those bellflowers never came back the same year, but they came back the following year. And I think it's because they got underneath the patio, and then they came, and then they worked their way back up again.
Yeah, they're really tricky. It's hard, and there's a lot. And quackgrass and bellflower are the two number one villains for sure. I would just say.
Where does that come from? You know,
creeping bellflower. I checked the other day. It's somewhere in Europe, somewhere in Asia. I can't remember. It was. Okay. I'm sure it was brought here because it's so pretty. I can't blame them. Yeah. It is. It's pretty.
Yeah. And is the turnip-like root edible?
I don't know. I would love, because you could feed a lot of people for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's massive.
Thank you so much for calling in, and good luck with that. You mentioned about what Mark might have to do is move the perennials that he treasures, and then, cover everything, dig it out, fork it up, cover it, bake it out. But you said, unfortunately, it's summer. What is the ideal time of year to do that?
Do it in spring, do it in fall. Plants are growing a lot in summer. It's hot, so they're already under stress. You can still do it. And the thing is, when you have bellflower through your lawn, the bellflower roots are in these other plant roots too. So it's always going to be hard. But I'll just say the number one thing you can do, establish other plants, establish a full healthy garden, and that's the first line of defense against bellflower and other plants from establishing, having a competitive plant community.
A competitive plant community. I say that as I pick up the line and say, hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for calling Radio Noon.
Yes, I would like to share my successful experience converting a suburban lawn in Transcona to a pollinator garden, a perennial garden with all the perennial plants. That was about a decade ago. The property was about 33 years at the time. We've been here 44 years now. I put in the original lawn way back in 1980 and then destroyed that lawn just a decade ago. And extremely successful. 10 years later, I have what I think is a fantastic looking yard, extremely biodiverse, and it was very successful, very pleasing. People walk by the house, and it's 100% lawns around here, and mine gets way more attention. I'm sure there's a few people that don't like the looks of it, but I strongly encourage that anybody who wants to achieve this, it really did not cost me very much at all. I bought all my plants at Prairie Originals. I didn't pay an awful lot there. It was a few $100s, of course. And getting rid of the existing lawn, which was deteriorating because I had stopped maintaining it, getting over the years, stopped liking lawn. I used actually vinegar. I used many, many liters of vinegar to kill off the grass and everything else there. There's a lot of resources out there, including your guest, and go for it.
Kevin, in terms of labor, I find summer's too short. I don't have time for maintenance of a lot of stuff. Is it faster to take care of the lawn you have now, the pollinator garden you have now, than it used to be to mow?
Up until the last couple years, there was very little maintenance. All I did is go through the pollinator garden, go through the perennial garden, and pull out the obvious weeds. I made it easy for myself. I only put in 7 different perennial plants. I know what they look like. I know exactly what they look like at all stages of their development, and anything that's not one of those, I pull out. So that part was easy. I've now got the problem that some of my perennial plants, I actually planted some fairly aggressive ones because I wanted to fill the space quickly and I wanted them to compete successfully against the weed infestation that was going to happen in year 1, 2, year 3. And now I'm actually having to pull out some of my own perennial plants, the ones that are slightly more aggressive than some of the others. And that just keeps it from becoming a monoculture of the one plant that's the most aggressive. But no, to answer your question there, I do very little work in that front yard other than just the one plant, keeping him in check.
Kevin, thank you so much for calling Radio Noon. Vinegar, Nick, what do you think of vinegar as a way to start the destruction of a lawn?
Haven't tried it, but sounds like it's working well.
Yeah. But still, you have to dig that thing out. You know what I'm finding interesting? That so many people have called in today. We've actually run out of time to ask you the list of questions I have here. Nick and I have been planning this conversation for a number of weeks. Wonderful of you to come in. Leave us with a bit of wisdom. If there's one question or common problem that Manitobans ask you, a piece of wisdom you could share right now, what would it be?
Plant densely, focus on establishment, and really try to think about your yard as a plant community, not necessarily a plant collection of one thing here and there. Think about how all the plants will work together, provide interest and resources for pollinators at different times of the year. And even into fall, into winter, think about how plants can be beautiful in all seasons.
Nick Friesen-Hughes, thank you so much for your time today. I know this is a clearly busy time of year, but you'll come back sometime? We'll get you back in. It's been great having you. Thanks to everyone who called in today as well. Nick Friesen-Hughes is a landscape designer with Dogwood Landscape Design. It is now 12:58. We only have a minute left on Radio Noon today, and I've got to thank you for listening. What ideas do you think we should question here on our call-in conversation? What would you like to have us ask or talk about? Let us know. You can always comment on what you hear here on Radio Noon by listening and then by calling our listener line at 204-788-3797, 788-3797. Leave a message anytime. And remember, you can go to YouTube, search CBC Manitoba, and under live stream, you'll find our call-in conversations and our entire program. Thank you to Kevin Nipatebo, Wendy Parker, May McKillop, and everyone else, Travis Peterson. Thank you to Matt Humphrey and also to Riley Lachuk, everyone who contributed to today's program. I'm Janet Stewart, and I look forward to chatting with you tomorrow when we're going to talk about cricket.